どこにいるんだ。
Hey kid, what'd you do with my backpack? This scene has, to me, always kind of stood out because it's the first time you get a really lengthy and complex QuickTime event traveling through the city. And it's a feature of Shenmue 2 that I think really stands out in comparison to the first game, Shenmue. Shenmue had some really great usage of QuickTime events, something that very few games have really equaled the quality of. Instead of being just gimmicky, they really felt like a distinct part of the gameplay. And this one in particular has always stood out, just showing the how much they really up the ante in the creativity and the complexity of the QuickTime events, particularly later in the game as you're chasing people down. But this was really the first example that really showed how to do a QuickTime event right and not just make it some gimmicky thing. Really think of games like Asura's Wrath and a lot of other games from the 7th and beginning of the 8th gen, where QuickTime events, I think, have this negative connotation because they just haven't been used properly and they're seen as just sort of this gimmicky thing to add to a game. And this is just done really well and is one of the better parts of Shenmue 2, showing how you can do it to really give it a really interesting and fast-paced action movie feel for a lot of scenes that give it a more cinematic look than if it was actual gameplay. It'd be much harder to do just straight gameplay, not looking at a QuickTime event, but actually physically running through the streets and having more of a free-roaming element, I think, would take away from the cinematic feel. And when used correctly, like in that example, you can give it an interesting, fast-paced gameplay element along with the cinematic feel and have it done right. And this scene, too, fairly soon after, highlights another thing that I think is just fantastic, and I really enjoyed the first time I played Shenmue 2, the ability to follow people, to ask people for directions in the street and follow them around, has always been something that I thought was of great benefit to the game, not only in helping you find things more quickly and having a guide, but at the same time it gives you a way of looking at the city and perhaps seeing a path that you missed when you're very first exploring and are a little overwhelmed because you missed a side street that the person tends to take you through. And it gives you a chance to take a moment and make contact and get to know some of the inhabitants of the city, some random people that don't really have much of a personality. They're just kind of random passers-by, but you use people a couple times for things like this, or asking them questions, asking them where you can get a job, or gambling, or different things like that. You start then to notice and recognize people and start to have a better picture of how there really is a little bit more of a set schedule, a little bit of a set pathway for different characters to go, and it starts to feel more like it's inhabited by individuals rather than mindless NPCs. And these were just two elements that I think have really stood the test of time and show some wonderful game design that has only been equaled in a very small number of instances in the past, 15, 16 years now. It really shows how brilliant Shenmue 1 and 2 were and how well developed they were. The fact that these games still have elements that are on par with much of the best work of today really shows just how timeless they are and makes me really excited for Shenmue 3.
ワンちゃんのことはあんまり知らないんだ。